My name's Johanne, and this is my brother Tobias, and today we're going to talk to you about water. I conduct research looking at how water moves through landscapes.
And I film it.
Digging holes to discover what's out here. Taking notes on the soil and the water. And take my hand, you know I'm bound to wander out into the blue.
I'm a field scientist who studies the ecology and hydrology of landscapes that are changing. I spend a couple months each year up in Alaska in both the winter and the summer, looking at landscapes that are undergoing large-scale vegetation change. I'm investigating how the interactions between the snow, soils, and plants lead to changes in ecosystem function. The site that I'm studying was first established in the 1950s by prominent Alaskan ecologist Les Viereck. It was then resampled by the National Park Service in 2012, 50 years after it was established. In that half century that passed, average summer temperatures increased by at least 2 degrees Celsius. The Park Service documented drastic changes in vegetation. What's happening at this site is that balsam poplar are expanding their range and growing outside of their historic boundaries. So this site was expected to be a low shrubby tundra, but now we're having the influx of these tall trees, turning it into a forest. One of my favorite things about this project is the long history of my site. I have the ability to collect data from these plots that we can directly compare to what they looked like 60 years ago. This is really important for climate change research because we have direct comparisons over this time period that we've experienced a large amount of warming, and we don't have to make assumptions or correlations. We actually have these direct relationships at this site. Vegetation change is pretty obvious to see, but I want to understand what else is happening in this landscape. What's happening in the soil? What's happening in the winter when we're not out there to observe it? To do this, we're going out into the field. My site is located 90 miles in the backcountry of Denali, which makes for some creative logistics. In the summer, there's usually a Park Service road that goes out to within about 7 miles of my site, but a few years ago, there was a large landslide that closed that road halfway through. We bike to the closure, there's an access route around where the road is closed on a gravel bar, and then we bike the rest of the closed road.
That was kind of deep.
What?
Was kind of deep.
It was a little deep. Once we get done biking, we pack up our gear and we hike into my site and spend a week down there collecting all the data that we can.
Sweet.
After biking almost 80 miles and shuttling gear, we load up to hike down to my research site. Even though it's only a handful of miles at this point, we have to cross some tough terrain. Tussocks, willows, and multiple river crossings make travel pretty slow. With all the shrubs, it can be hard to see where we're going. Sometimes we choose the right route, and sometimes Tobias doesn't. Sick route finding.
Made it.
Out here in the wilderness, knee deep in wanderlust. It sure beats staying at home. Our feet are wet and cold. It runs down to the bones. But we will never grow old. It sure beats
We have
staying
10
at
plots and it's going to
home.
rain all day tomorrow. We only have today. Do you think we can get from 8 plots today? Can we get the moisture probes, the soil collection, the tree density, and the leaves collected?
Yeah. Alright, let's kick some ass.
Look, I smell like a wet dog. Nasty.
From our base camp, we hike to our different plots, which are dispersed across the areas with poplar forest and without. One of my big questions is if there's different water available in these areas with different vegetation. We start with collecting soil cores, which we bring back to the lab to understand their water holding capacity and nutrient availability. This year, I also dug up soil temperature and moisture sensors, which have been logging hourly data for the last 2 years. This gives us really valuable insight into the freezing dynamics in the soil. Then we measure tree density and sapling densities to understand the structure of the poplar forests and see how new trees are establishing. We collect a lot of data when we're out in the field, and a big reason for that is we don't really know what relationships are going to be notable or show trends. And so since this is such a hard site to get out to and the access isn't easy, we in some ways kind of over-collect just on the off chance that certain relationships don't come up in our data and we have something to work with. We use a lot of high-tech equipment, and sometimes we use things that you wouldn't really anticipate would be used for science. These are little litter bags, we call them. They're basically just popsicle sticks that we've weighed before bringing out into the field. And we put them in these little mesh bags and tuck them under the soil to let them decompose for a year. We collect leaf samples to dry in the lab and look at the specific leaf area of these different plants. We also use these same leaves to grind up and run for carbon isotope analyses, which can give us an idea of the water use efficiency of these different plants. We collect a lot of soils for a lot of different things to look at nutrient availability, decomposition rates, and water storage. These soils we collect either from the surface or from deeper areas in the soil to look at how the soil changes with depth. When we're out in the field, we try to not take too much from the land. We leave as little of a trace as possible. Even when we're collecting soils and leaves, we approach the land with respect. We're trying to let the ecosystem tell us what's going on without forcing it. I'm in my favorite plot right now, plot 305, and I love this plot so much because we have a panoramic view of the Alaska Range with Denali towering above us over that way. The Muldrow Glacier is barely visible in the distance over there. And this plot is an outflow terrace of the Muldrow, so it used to be covered by the glacier only 300 years ago. And it's pretty crazy to see what has happened in those years, from the freshly exposed gravel after the glacier recedes to what's now an intact landscape. I love doing field work, and I feel so lucky that I get to do what I do. But sometimes it's just really hard to be out there. We don't normally see many animals when we're out at my plots when the mosquitoes are this bad. When they suck for us, the animals don't want to be in them either. But when the cloud of mosquitoes finally lifts, we have to be a lot more aware of the big animals.
Whoa. This thing's on the hunt. Holy shit. Holy shit, Johanna.
We're actively chasing a caribou. They might think that we're caribou. No, he's getting close. You stay! Tobias, stand up. Stand up. Hey! Hey!
Oh!
Hey!
Get out of here, bear!
You back up!
Oh, just you wait!
You back up! You back up!
Hey!
Back up! Hey! Hey! Back up! Back up! Back up! No! No! Back up!
Yeah. Good job, Johanna.
That was a little close for comfort. A lot of vegetation ecology and landscape ecology takes place during the summer, which makes sense. It's the growing season, it's when all these plants are active, it's the kind of most dynamic season for looking at landscapes and ecology. But when I'm out here in the summer, I can tell how much I would be missing if I wasn't also out here in the winter. This landscape is so shaped by snow and the water that comes from snow that it's inherent to understand this landscape through the lens of both seasons. In the winter, we charter a one-way flight to land on a frozen lake 90 miles deep in Denali National Park.
There's a feeling in my heart when I wake up. There's a world outside and it's waiting. If you see a good chance, you gotta take it. 'Cause life is too short to be faking.
Getting out to my site feels like part adventure film and part science field expedition. It's fun to be able to combine my love for being outside and skiing and being in the backcountry with my passion for science. This is Maggie, our Magna probe. She makes life way easier because with the hit of a button, we get snow depth and a geolocated point for each location. So currently I'm wrapping up my my fourth winter field season in Denali. Right now it's March, and we just spent the last 10 days out at my field site conducting snow surveys. And so we were measuring snow depth and snow density, also known as snow water equivalent, at all the sites that I also visit in the summer. And this is to get an idea of how much water will be going into these ecosystems come spring, because snow acts as a water tower in the landscape where it can hold all of this precipitation on the landscape until the spring when it melts and then is released to be able to be used by the plants.
Well, that's field work. Improvising.
Doing research in the backcountry a lot of the time means you have to get creative and resourceful. There's no truck to go back to, there's no Home Depot to go find gear that you might need, so you have to use what you have. We had a wind sensor that had to be partially above the height of the vegetation, which turned out to be a little bit challenging in the forest. Our tripod didn't end up being tall enough. So to fix that, we ended up using our ski straps to attach our tripod to a long branch we found on the ground, and then attach that whole contraption to the tree to get the wind sensor at the right height. So it looked a little bit janky, but it ended up working and we were still able to get the data that we needed. With all the data collected, we skied the 90 miles back to the park headquarters.
Gonna send it?
Honey, it's been a while since I've seen those city lights.
Oh,
'Cause I've been out here living life.
but that view.
Oh, honey, it's been a while.
After 6 field seasons, it's a little bit bittersweet to be saying goodbye to this site. It's been 3 years of coordinating flights and logistics and figuring out bikes and working through mechanicals and carrying 80-pound packs and planning backcountry meals and collecting so many leaves and twigs and soil samples. Part of me is a little excited to get to do something new and different, but I'm definitely going to miss this site and everything I learned out here.
Oh God!
Oh, honey, it's been a while. How time has flown. If you could only understand the ways I've grown. I've seen bears and squirrels and fish and birds, the footprints of the caribou herds. If you could see what I have seen. Oh, honey, it's been a while out on this rocky road, but now it's time for the traveler to come home. Oh, honey, it's been a while. honey, it's been a while. Oh, honey, it's been a while.
After all those weeks in the field collecting so much data, the real work begins. I have samples to process in the lab and a lot of thinking to do about how this landscape is functioning. What story do all these relationships tell? How do all these measurements interrelate? And how do I disentangle what is really going on?
I want to say thank you to everyone who made this fieldwork possible, starting with Sarah Sten of the Park Service and Carl Rowland, who first came to the site back in 2012 to resurvey it, to Les Vierick for establishing the site in the first place, to my brother and Patrick for being really great field assistants, for Camp Denali for helping with logistics when our plans went awry, and to my advisor Scott Allen for supporting me with all the science.
That was sick. Not bad.
Alright, sick. See ya. Oh yeah.